Assault carbines are the younger brothers of the DMR. They're a bit less powerful, but are otherwise almost identical in use. Assault carbine users almost always have some magnified scope, and are equally as likely to either be timid or hyper-aggressive. General stereotypes out of the way, let's get into specifics. The standard SKS is the most common weapon employed until proper level 2 is reached, where it is then dropped immediately. Most often, they're run with 20-round magazines, but the brokest of the broke will still use the integrated box mag. If you use the integrated box mag, you can definitely find success, but you also have about a 65% chance of dying mid-reload. A more rare sight is the modded SKS. Resembling the bastardized weapons that were obtained by Bubba for $150 back in the 80s, the plastic SKS is used by those with a strange attachment to the platform. They really like the SKS, so much so that they may try to argue that it's better than the AK for some reason. That being said, there is one exception to this rule. The OP-SKS is the quote-unquote DMR of the early wipe. Much like the SKS, the PSO scopes are cheap, readily available, and do well enough to justify their usage. It is the perfect example of good enough. Because more money is put into DMRifying the OP-SKS, the Tapco furniture actually makes sense and is much more common. Oh yeah, and they're suppressed a lot. While the SKS is the most common for the first few hours or days, the VEPR KM quickly becomes the weapon of choice for basically everyone. Level 2 proper brings PS ammo and 30-round magazines, making reloads so much easier and faster than the SKS. If you play Tarkov at the wipe, you are very familiar with the dong handle bastion Walther sight combo that is literally everywhere. This build has carried many a PMCs through the early quests and propelled them into the mid-wipe. If someone is using a modded VEPR KM, they are either just memeing, had one in their stash, or just want a semi-auto AKM for some reason, even though it's like the same price and just worse. There are two kinds of VPO-209 users. The first of which uses either Geska, FMJ, or EKO ammo, and mostly hunts scavs. The high recoil and relatively low armor pen makes it ineffective at PvP, especially when the VEPR KM is just better for the early wipe. There really is no reason to use a 209 with these ammos. Then there's the other guy. Yeah, that guy with AP-M. AP-M is basically just a flying brick that will rip straight through most armors and leave a cavity the size of Detroit in your chest. They are kind of terrifying, not because they are the most effective, hell, the VEPR KM is still arguably better. No, these guys are terrifying because they enjoy causing suffering for other players. Some people like to mod the ADAR so that it looks like an M4 just so they can mess with whoever loots it. Others use the ADAR because they have a strange obsession with how satisfying it is as a weapon because it's semi-automatic and therefore each round has a greater stake in it, requiring greater levels of precision and care in order to survive, resulting in each fight becoming a more difficult but ultimately adrenaline-inducing venture. Then there are the people that own an AR-15 in real life and try to replicate its configuration in game. Sometimes they just look like standard ADARs, and other times you get some real goofy combinations. Yeesh, man, rest in peace. Like, damn, this thing got neutered hard by the M80 ammo change. By the time you have reliable and worthwhile access to M80, You have so many better options for 308 that this thing is basically worthless now. Some people use it with BCP FMJ, which boasts 83 damage, which is higher than 7.62 PS's 57 damage. That being said, most players prefer the lower recoil and greater consistency of the VEP KM regardless. So there's really no reason to use this thing. It went from the mid-tier sweat weapon of choice to being largely ignored by everyone at all levels. I guess the stereotype for these guys is that they don't exist. It is definitely a niche within a niche, but that being said, it is a very effective niche. The SAG is the ergo king, and can easily get over 100 ergo with very low recoil. People that use this love the snappy aim and easy control, especially with a Monstrum 2X. Ultimately, they want a headshot machine, and this will provide while still being able to pierce armors. The SAG AK, but small and with slightly more ergo. That's it, they're pretty much identical. I'm literally only covering this thing to be pedantic. Literally just a Gucci ADAR. The TX-15 offers mostly insignificant improvements over the ADAR, so if someone is using it, they just want the drip. If someone was actually focused on getting a good gun, they would just swap out the lower with an M4 lower. Instead, they intentionally handicap themselves to use a sexy and satisfying gun, which I respect the hell out of. Alright, that's the assault carbines out of the way. Next time I'll cover the pistols, so be sure to leave any stereotypes and suggestions in the comments. Sorry if my voice sounded a little off, I'm still getting over a cold, though I think it's mostly passed, so hopefully it wasn't too significant. Rust content should be coming down the pipe eventually, so be on the lookout for that. And anyways, thank you so much for watching, especially until the end, and as always, I hope you enjoyed.